Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I've been gifted with another week of skiing. The good folks at the summit at Snoqualmie will be open, and I'll get my final days of skiing in. And it's not just the summit that's extended the season. For all the shit I talk about Crystal Mountain, they are going to be open through May 30th. And while it can be a shit show there during the prime time of ski season, parking and lines at this point should be pretty chill. So kudos to Crystal Mountain as well. I don't think Vail is extending any weekends or hours, but that's pretty much how they play the game. I hope everyone has had a great season and they came away healthy. For me, I'm still in a brace for my thumb, which after 3 months, I'm still in pain and pretty weak. The doctor has me coming in again in a month, and if I'm not getting stronger and more stable, it's a pin and surgery. This would totally suck, as I've been recovering from this stupid thumb injury for 3 months already, and if I have to have surgery, it'll be a full-on year before I'm totally normal again. But really, I'm fine. I have not much to complain with. My body is pretty healthy. I look at people like Scott Gaffney, who had a terrible crash this week, and he's got a lot more recovering than I've got to do. And if you listen to what he has to say, he's not too worried about himself either. He thinks he's fine because really, in the world of skiing, there are some serious injuries, and a thumb or a lung isn't that serious in the grand scheme of things because they can be fixed. So I wish Scott Gaffney a quick recovery. If you saw his crash on the internet, it was terrible, and I'm sure it'll be in the crash segment of MSP this fall. And for everyone else out there who's not injured but has just old, tired muscles like me, because every muscle group in my body seems to be tired and sore and just always worked from skiing and everything else that I'm doing, well, I really want to thank Jeff Kendall over at Theragun. He sent me one of their massage guns, and if you haven't tried one of them, they are game-changing. Speaking of game-changing, my guest this week is the guy who almost single-handedly changed the world of big mountain skiing, the often misunderstood Jeremy Nobis. Jeremy is an Olympian, ski movie badass, and polarizing skier. He's one of Powder Magazine's 50 greatest skiers of all time. He's filmed countless segments with TGR, he's filmed with Warren Miller and MSP, and he's always done it his own way. Before we jump into part 1 with Jeremy Nobis, I want to ask you to do a few things for me. The first is follow me on Instagram, at The Powell Movement. The second is to tell a friend about the show. And if someone was asking about podcast recommendations on their social media, please tag me in the comments. It really does help the show grow. Finally, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, and please support the incredible brands that make this show happen. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Elon Skis, Rollerblade, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk with Jeremy Nobis. So, like all badass skiers, you were born in Madison, Wisconsin. Is that where the Nobis' roots are, in Wisconsin?
Well, yeah, I'm born in Madison, Wisconsin, and I still have family there, just cousins and aunt. But most of my family is all passed. I got my mother and my sister still, but they all live out west. But yeah, I moved to Park City when I was 7 years old, and all I dreamt about was skiing. Once it was described to me at 4, I was like, oh, I'm sick of sledding. I want to go skiing.
And before you even get to Park City, while I don't think you're a religious dude these days, I read somewhere that you were an altar boy growing up. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. You've done your research, my friend.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I got funny stories about that too. And no, the priest was a good dude. I played soccer with him. He was an Irish guy. He was an awesome guy.
I don't want to hear about him playing with your soccer balls or anything like that. That's super weird.
No, dude. It's just like, he was just a freaking he was a crazy Irishman. He was an awesome guy. Like, it wasn't like normal religious upbringings. But yeah, I was an altar boy. My mom wanted me to be confirmed in the Catholic Church, and so she made me go through catechism, and I'd have to, go to church on Saturday evenings because I couldn't go on Sunday mornings because I was always racing. And then I finally got confirmed in the Catholic Church, which they say makes you an adult in the church, and then we never went to church again after that. My mom's goal. That was my mom's goal.
I'm Jewish, and we did the same thing with the bar mitzvah. Once I had the bar mitzvah, we never went back, which was super weird to me, but whatever. I got it done and had that thing, and they told me I was a man.
So you get it?
Yeah, I totally understand. And then your family experience, was it mom, dad, sister, white picket fence? Was it an easy childhood, tough childhood? What was it like?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was a lucky kid. Like, my parents knew nothing about skiing, and it was what I wanted to do. And they 100% supported me. A lot of families put pressure on their kids. Like, I even had one of my best friends. He was as good as me or better, and his family wanted him to go to college and be a lawyer or a doctor. And so he quit at 15. Yeah. No, I had 100% support from my family. They kind of really didn't really know what I was up to entirely because neither one of them were athletes. My dad was a football player and a swimmer, but he didn't know how to ski. And again, 100% support. And even my sister became a ski racer because my parents forced her into it, but they didn't force me on anything. So, no, my childhood was pretty good, man. Like, I lived in Park City. I ruled the roost there. Like, night skied every day after school. And I kind of did whatever I wanted to do.
It sounds like you had your first ski experience at Devil Head in Wisconsin, and it was freezing, and you might not have been so stoked on it. But then you moved to Park City, which is a warmer place, and you moved there when you're like 7, and you were immediately enrolled in the ski race program. Is that when you fell in love with skiing, was when you got to Park City, or did you always have the idea in your head that you were going to be a skier?
Well, that's funny you heard about Devil's Head. That's pretty cool. You've done your research, my friend. Should I tell you the whole story there?
Yeah.
Well, Devil's Head, it was funny. Like, all I wanted to do was ski. I went once at 4, and I didn't ski again until I went to Park City. But I remember snow guns were going. It was a rope tow in Devil's Head. My parents said, we're cold, we're going in. And I said, can I stay out? And they said, yeah, we'll come grab you. And then they said, okay, it's time for you to come in. And I said, can I come back out? And they're like, yeah, you can. And then my toes thawed out, and then I started crying. They go, do you want to go back out? And I was like, no. But I never wanted to be a ski racer or go to the Olympics, which I did both. I just wanted to slide down mountains. And then I basically got to Park City in December, and then in March we had an end of the school year ski race, and I beat all of the ski racers. And I wasn't even a ski racer. I was just a skier at the time. And I was like 7, second grade, and I won the ski school race, which, I mean, 7, who cares, right? But I was like, okay, I want a ski race then. And then a year later, I saw the Olympics on TV, and I said, okay, I want to go to the Olympics. It was just kind of a progression. I honestly never wanted to be a ski racer. I just wanted to ski. But I was a redheaded, competitive kid, and I just kind of naturally fell into the ski racing scene. And next thing you know, I made the U.S. ski team when I was 16, a junior in high school.
Yeah, and speaking of being a competitive kid, I mean, was it one of those things where by the time you get to 10, 12, 14, 15, are you a super competitive kid in everything that you do? Is that just kind of what drives you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, I've gotten older and mellowed out, but I had a temper. I was on fire. I was angry. I mean, I don't know if I was angry. Everything I did, I just had a chip on my shoulder, I guess. And so it just kind of came naturally.
Did the other kids like you, or did that chip make them kind of not like you that much?
Oh, I've always was neutral as a kid growing up. Like, I was kind of the middle guy. Like, I wasn't cool. I wasn't a nerd, but I was always ski racing. So I was always busy. But there were guys that didn't like me. I never lost a fight except for one guy in my life. Like, people would just punch me first, or they'd pick fights with me and for no reason. But I never lost. But there was one guy that was tougher, so he finally beat me up.
How many fights do you think you were in before you turned 18?
Oh, I don't know, 10 plus.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't really a fighter, though. Like, people would just pick them with me, and then I'd hit first. I didn't pull punches. I still don't verbally, but I don't know. Yeah, it was a funny childhood, man. Like, I really never picked fights. I just got picked on.
And were you one of the bigger kids? Because with ski racing, I mean, you started doing well right away, it seemed like, or doing better than people pretty early. And a lot of times when you're younger, size plays into that. Like, the bigger kids who are comfortable with their bodies, they're better ski racers, better fighters, and better everything until people grow into their bodies. Was that you? Were you one of the bigger kids growing up?
No, I really wasn't. I mean, I grew into my body by the time I was 16. But when I was younger than that, I was never the biggest guy. Like, all my buddies were bigger than I was. But by the time I was, a sophomore in high school, I was pretty much, I think I kind of quit growing. I mean, I was my same size now, 5'10", actually maybe 10 pounds heavier than I am now, but I was never a big, old, strong, heavy dude. I was more of a technician when I ski raced. I was not a physical guy. I mean, I went through periods of being chubby and got crap for it from my trainers on the U.S. ski team, but still, I was only 5'10", 180 pounds, and that's not obese or anything,
No, it's not a giant by any means.
Yeah.
So your life starts revolving around ski racing. Your sister is a badass too. Was there a rivalry with her, like every weekend or every race, you wanting to do better than your sister just because you could come home and be like, I'm better?
No, actually, never was that competitive with my sister. I mean, it's female versus male. I mean, some people do it. Honestly, I never was. I mean, I gave my sister a hard time. Don't get me wrong, because she's my sister, but it never involved skiing. For some reason, skiing was sacred. I never wanted to ever, confidence on that side of things. We did joke about it at the Olympics because we both went to the Olympics together, and so I got ninth in GS and she got 10th in Super G. So that's the first time I probably gave her a hard time. I was like, I beat you in the Olympics. But that was more of a joke. It wasn't a competitive thing at all. I mean, my sister only ski raced because I was doing it. My mom and dad kind of like elbowed her into it. She hated it when she was young, and then she learned to love it. And she became kind of more successful in a way than I was. So I had more talent, but she had more results. So she was good.
And when you have her kind of in the whole program as well, especially as you guys get older, is it like you two both have the same group of friends, or is there enough years between you guys where you have separate groups?
Well, she's only a year and a half younger than me. I mean, we grew up with the same friends. Sad to say, we're not as close as we should be as family. But yeah, she got married young and she's had her own family, and I never got married. So yeah, we don't have the same group of friends necessarily. Not at all. I mean, we all have the same people still, but we're not all that in touch anymore, really. I mean, I talk to her once a month type of thing.
Yeah, and siblings grow apart, but I'm thinking when you guys are ski racing and your whole crew is a bunch of ski racers, like I can see where if your sister's a year and a half younger than you and a bunch of your buddies and you guys are all going out and having a few beers, I mean, there could be that situation where one of your buddies hooks up with your sister and you end up pissed at the end of the day. Did that shit ever happen?
Oh boy, I didn't think it was going to go that way that quickly, but now that you brought it up, I'll agree with you. Oh no, I laugh, and I mean, I'm 51 now, and I still have old friends say, "Oh yeah, I was with your sister," and I don't care. But I always used to joke. All my buddies were after my sister because she was pretty hot, and they'd be like, "Hey, Jeremy, do you care?" I'd just say, "Good luck. She's a firecracker. She'll take your head off anyway." I never worried about her. Honestly, I literally would tell them my buddies, like, I'd just say, "Hey, go for it, man. Good luck." She was a tough girl.
Then when you think about ski racing, when does it start getting serious for you? Because when you get in there at 7 and 8 years old, you're learning technique, and I'm sure it's almost like a babysitter, but with some focus. But when does it start getting real, where like people are expecting you to do well and really wanting you to do well?
I went through a bunch of periods where no coaches really took me very seriously, but I always took myself seriously. Probably 9 or 10 years old, I was ready. But there's always guys that were more talented. I just outworked everybody in the end. And then, by the time I was on the US ski team, that's when I worked even harder. I just outworked people. I wasn't the most talented, period. I guess that's kind of what I could say. I mean, Tommy Moe's a gold medalist. I'm not a gold medalist, but he was far more talented than me. And eventually I started kicking his butt, but then I started coaching him as an athlete type of coach too. Like, I'd be like, "Hey, dude, you need to come over here and work on this." Because again, when you grab talent and you help them, they can take it further. Like I said, I mean, I could have taken it further myself, but I just work harder, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Before even all the hard work, I'm sure it kind of comes into it. But when does the travel start ramping up for you for skiing? I mean, is it 13, 14, 15 where you start doing trips to go ski race and you realize that skiing is going to be this vehicle that's going to take you all around the world if you do well?
We were traveling interstate wise when I was that young. I started traveling internationally when I was 16, basically when I made the ski team. Like, I basically was a good student in high school, but I basically didn't go to high school after my junior year. Like, I just was traveling the ski team to Europe, to wherever we went. That was the lifestyle.
Well, I think we're getting a little ahead, so I'm going to reel it back a little bit in. So the travel has started interstate, and when you're young and you're doing well in races, do companies take notice and start giving you free skis and product when you're young, or is that something that you just get kind of a pro form on?
No, it doesn't happen as much anymore. They hold back a little bit, but I got free skis, free boots when I was 12 years old. Rossignol, Lang, Marker bindings. I mean, the first time I got sponsored by Marker, I basically Hank Tauber was the guy at the time. I chipped 2 inches of ice off his driveway. Then he gave me a backpack and said, all right, good luck. And then, a year later, I was on marker bindings. That's how I got sponsored my first time. Like, literally a double car driveway, 2 inches of freaking ice. It was hard.
And you did all that for a backpack, but then you get to know the marker guy, or he knows who you are. And then after a year of racing, he's like, you're on the program?
Yeah. I don't have all the details, but yeah, that's the simple part of the story. That's for real.
So does any of that success, when you're 12 years old and you're getting free shit from Marker and you've got skis and boots and you're getting all this free stuff, you're a kid with a chip on his shoulder as it is, does that stuff get to your head and do you get cocky? Like, do people notice that this is the cocky Nobis who's got all this shit going for him?
I don't know that I was that way that young, but I guess I've been misunderstood my whole career. And I think, yeah, people have always probably said that about me, period. Like, I mean, that's kind of how you survive, I didn't outright try to be cocky. I was just always an aggressive person, and I still kind of am, I guess, but it's just what I know.
Yeah, it seems like you've always been one speed, just foot on the gas, and you'll figure it out afterwards.
Yeah, I just ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah. And I think it's worked for you sometimes, and it hasn't worked for you others, and we're gonna talk about those. But at this point, you're still just the little kid crushing it. I think you go to Italy for the FIS Junior Worlds. I would think that's your first big crazy trip for skiing. Like, holy shit, I'm going to another country to ski, and you're like 14 or 15 years old.
I'd already been to Europe for a couple years. I was 17. I was starting in the middle of the pack. I wasn't even expected to be in the top 10. And I came down and freaking won. I was like, what? Okay. And then the next day, I wasn't even supposed to race a giant slalom. I was ranked 8th out of 8 guys that were there, and only 6 get a race. And so they replaced one of the guys that was supposed to race with me. And in the GS, I fell in the first run, won the first run. And then I was so nervous the second run, I ended up getting 3rd. But, the following year in Alaska, I won the giant slalom. I became a technical skier after that. Those are memories I'll never forget. Those are more special than, of course I loved going to the Olympics, but to the Junior Worlds, that's what broke me out. I was like, how did I win? What?
When you went to Junior Worlds, you weren't at the Green Mountain Valley School yet, right? You were still in Park City?
Oh, I was. No, that's how I made the ski team. Yeah, my coach was an Austrian dude, Werner Margreiter.
Okay.
He went on to be the head Austrian coach during Herman Meyer's time, actually. And after I left GMVS, he left there too. And anyway, he was a great coach. He was a racer manager. And at 16, he helped me make the next leap, define myself, basically.
Okay, so let me figure out this timeline. So when you were in Park City, it sounded like that with all the travel and training, you were missing a bunch of school and they weren't giving you any special treatment, and all those absences became a problem. Was that an issue with school, with you not being there?
That's a very good point. Like I said, school became second once I went to Green Mountain in Vermont. But when I was a sophomore in high school, I had honors courses and AP courses, college credit courses. I was already a good student.
Okay.
An elite student, actually. And then, like any other school system, the board of the school, I was getting out of school every day, half day. I was just doing the normal courses. I wasn't doing the electives because when you're young, you have 7 periods. I did the main, whatever, science, history, English, and math. But the parents got together and they wanted their kids in my AP courses. I was just taking up a spot. And they were pissed that I could get out of school half day all the time and take a spot from their kids. Well, the problem was I was smarter than their kids and I deserved that spot. But they literally kicked me out of high school. They gave me Fs. And I looked at the teachers and I said, all you can give me is an incomplete because I was passing this course. You can't give me an F. And they're like, nope, sorry, we're giving you Fs. And I was angry. I was like, screw you guys. And so then I homeschooled for half a year. Then I applied to a couple academies out east, and then I got into Green Mountain. And then I never went to school after that again.
So was the Green Mountain Valley School, was that a move that you were really excited about, or was it the only option for really what you wanted to do?
Well, it kind of was my only option. I applied to a couple other academies that I wanted to go to before Green Mountain. It turns out Green Mountain was my best choice, and I had the best coach I could have ever possibly had. And the other academies, I think, were bummed they didn't get me in the end. But again, I wasn't the all-star. It was weird. It took me a while to get used to being the East Coast Academy, being away from home. I didn't fit in at first. I ended up getting kicked out of school because I had my temper going. And once I came home for Christmas and came back, I cooled off and everybody started to like me finally, and everything was great. But no, I was not popular when I first got to school.
What do you do to get kicked out?
Oh, just mistalk to faculty.
Were you more of a class clown or just an asshole to them?
Basically an asshole.
Yeah, teachers don't like that from their students. But they didn't fully kick you out. They just sent you home early for a semester. Then you came back and kind of tightened your ship up and were able to remain in school.
I guess it was kind of it's a number of things. Like 8 of us, we went to Austria for a month and we all got caught drinking beer for first time I ever really did that. So that started the trouble. And then I had a faculty member get in my face, and she's a woman, and I basically told her to F off, and that didn't go well. And then they wanted to kick me out completely. And ironically, they have their own little school board, right? Like students are on it.
Yep.
And there were 2 students that I knew didn't like me very much. One was a woman, one was a man. They stuck up for me out of the blue.
Huh.
And said, no, don't kick him out. And they're the reason I stayed. Even though they didn't like me, they stuck up for me, which I, of course, became great friends with them down the road. And everybody else, for that matter. It all worked out. I think East Coast, West Coast people are different, too. I think they had more patience than normal people do out here. I don't know. It was really great. I'm lucky.
Now it's time for my first sponsor break, and the 10 Barrel Brewery, based out of Bend, Oregon, has been supporting this show for 5 years, and they support so much more in action sports. Between a world-class team of athletes and creating standalone movie projects and events, 10 Barrel really puts their money where their mouth is. And on top of that, they brew the best beer in the country. I'm a big fan of their hazy IPA Profuse Juice and their new Pilsner, but all of their beers are fantastic and worth a taste from you. So next time you're at the store, please pick up a 6-pack of 10 Barrel to find out what I'm talking about. For more about the beers, the events, and the athletes, head on over to 10barrel.com. My next sponsor is Stanley, and they have also been supporting the show forever. And you know Stanley, they're the brand famous for making that iconic green bottle that keeps coffee hotter and water colder than anyone else. Well, Stanley still makes that iconic bottle, but they also have everything you could possibly need for your camping adventure this summer. And I'm going to get you the best deal possible out there on all Stanley products. What you need to do to get 30% off all of your Stanley order is head on over to stanley1913.com. Pick out all the items you need and then some. I highly recommend the pint glasses and the water bottles. And when you check out, enter the code DRINKFAST. That's all lowercase and all one word, and you will save that 30%. My final sponsor this round is Rollerblade. And if you're a skier, your ski legs should be in great shape right now. And ski muscles are the hardest to build. The only way I found to keep them year-round and eliminate getting back into shape once the snow starts falling again is through inline skating. And Rollerblade not only invented the sport, they make the best products on the planet. On top of that, their award-winning Skate-to-Ski program in the App Store is all you need to keep those ski legs strong. So to find out more about the app, just head on over to the App Store, search for Skate-to-Ski, and download the app, or head on over to rollerblade.com to find out all about their amazing products. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. I would think those places are super expensive, and they do create a really great environment for you to not only experience ski racing, but have amazing coaching and travel the world and do a ton of different things that most kids aren't able to do. Does it put any strain on the family putting you into a school like this? I mean, I don't know what your parents did growing up, but I mean, is there a lot of money in the family where you can go do this? Because these schools aren't like a $10,000 school.
No, they're not. I got a scholarship, so that wasn't much of an issue there. And maybe that's why getting along when you're that age, people may think you're spoiled or something. So, no, my family couldn't afford it. I got a scholarship, and that's the only way I could have done it.
And who are the other big names that you're there with? I mean, they're not big names by any means when you're growing up, although they probably eventually turn into them. But who are the racers that are at that school that I know of?
Well, let's see. Darren Rawls, he was like an 8th grader when I was a senior. He was our little buddy.
Okay.
You've heard of Darren Rawls.
Yeah, he's the little guy that probably could keep up at that point, but he was really teeny at that point as well.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, like, I was full grown at 16. Darren wasn't full grown until he was like 20, and that's why he was a late bloomer. But he ended up being one of the best we've ever had, you know?
For sure.
Let's see, my sister went to there. I hadn't even thought about it forever. There was a bunch. But GMVS wasn't as prolific as like a Burke or a Stratton. These guys probably had more, but we always had a select few that nailed it. I guess I go back to Darren because I always loved that guy. He was just this little mini dude, and we were all seniors. We loved the kid. He was a champion in everything he ever did, in every sport he's ever done, beyond skiing. You know names. I can't think of them at the moment off the top of my head, but there's been a few.
Okay. And when you think about a school like that, you've done the race program in Park City, and then you go to this school that's really all fully focused on ski racing and putting out the best ski racers in the world. What are the different things that you get out of that school that you'll never get out of Park City?
Well, again, I was always controversial, and I was no dummy. I was already controversial at 13, 14 years old. Like, I left Park City ski team, created my own team at Park West, which is now the Canyons. I always wanted Park City to have a ski academy. I was like, if you guys have a ski academy here, I'd just stay here. But they didn't have them back in the day. Now Park City has their own. They have the winter school. They have all that stuff's in place now. And Park City produces as good as any skier from the East Coast. But in my time, you kind of had to go to the East Coast to get that type of attention. And I even just saw one of my old ski coaches, because I've been teaching up here in Sun Valley this winter, ski instructing, but I saw an old ski coach of mine that's coaching the Park City ski team still to this day, and he was a coach 30 years ago when I left Park City. He goes, Jim, you're going to hate the East Coast. And I was like, okay, whatever. Below zero weather, rain, this, that, the other. And it was funny, the first year I went to the East, it just snowed all winter. And I was like, wow, what's wrong with the East?
Right.
Then the second year I was there, exactly what I was told. Like, my soccer field was an ice rink. It's minus 50 one day and it's raining the next. Like, I got all the shitty weather the next year. But I also didn't have to be there that year. I was on the ski team and I was traveling Europe. So now I'm babbling, but it was just at the time, the East Coast is where you needed to be. And now that it's offered in Vail, Park City, it's offered all over the place. People figured it out, the formula.
But do you think that you get more of the race experience on the East Coast, even though in Vail and Park City they have programs, but on the East Coast you're skiing that bulletproof ice that you're not going to always get in Vail and Park City? The fastest race courses and the best race courses in the world seem like it's bulletproof and you have to know how to ski those. And the East Coast delivers on providing that, unfortunately, if you live there. But if you're a racer, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I will say the East Coast does offer one thing that the West never does, is definitely you can be skiing on 6 inches of ice where you see rocks to the ice underneath, even though you're not hitting them.
Right.
But nowadays, everything is man-made. Like, even the East Coast nowadays, they're blowing snow all the time. So you're not getting that old school East Coast ice anymore. I mean, like, even Europe, when I used to race World Cup, you have the Army out there. They just shovel snow into the mountain and sidestep it. You had to wear a mouth guard to ski down it. Europe has gnarly snow too. But nowadays, man-made snow has gotten so good that every race course is pretty fair and all really hard. And it's not old school see-through ice to the dirt anymore like it used to be that I've seen.
So it's getting easier for them.
Yeah, I mean, the courses are somehow they hold up better even than ice. They found a fair way to prepare ski races nowadays. Yeah, you're not getting that old school ice that used to happen. Everything is firm. Everything's pretty similar nowadays.
You know, one thing I had an interview, I think it was either Zach or Reggie Chris, and I think you're friends with both those dudes or know those dudes.
Yeah, I am. I was on the ski team with both of them, and I'm living in Sun Valley. They live here too. We do the same program together.
Nice. Well, they were saying that in Europe, back in their race days, they'd spray the course with chemicals, and there was a lot of chemicals in the snow just to firm it up. Did you have experience with that, with crazy snow, just chemically induced snow?
Yeah, I will say that they might be misinformed themselves. Europe didn't use many chemicals back in the day. America always did.
Well, I can't remember who was using it, but they did say that there was chemicals a lot on the race courses. I'm not sure if they said it was in Europe or the U.S.
No, they used some chemicals in Europe, but Europe was more like hardcore. Like, they were raw. Like, they would literally get the army out there and they'd sidestep and they'd blow water on a hill. And they didn't use many chemicals. I mean, they did every once in a while because the World Cup started to use them. The most chemicals I saw, actually, I remember racing a race in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire once, and they were using an experimental chemical. And I was just forerunning. I was an 18-year-old kid trying to get in the World Cup. And it was so hard. It was like marble. Like, even the guys racing, they couldn't make a full tip to turn tail. They had to, like, go to the gate and jam on their edges. And they never used the chemical again because it was too slippery. Like, I've been through a bunch of chemicals on World Cup. Yes, they did use them, but my worst were in America. But now they have figured out how to inject the snow and make good man-made snow, and it stays pretty good. It's a science like anything else. They've just gotten better over time.
Well, that's enough about talking about snow. And when you're at school and you get to Green Valley, are you immediately one of the better racers on the program?
Okay, that's kind of a two-part answer. Yes, I was, but they didn't recognize me. I was like eighth on the list of 8. And there's 60 people in school, and only 8 of us were really good skiers. And they didn't really give me much attention until I finally did break through. And then all of a sudden, I got all the attention. Like, it was hard work for me to get any sort of respect, actually.
And was that just because of your attitude coming into the whole thing?
Maybe I just was 1 year younger than the older guys. Like, when you're 16 years old, the coach always pays attention to the older guys first because they might be closer to making it. But I eventually just started beating them all, and then all of a sudden, I was the wonder guy. And it took me half a year to get that respect. That's where the chip came from, is that I was like, wait, do you not know how good I am type of thing when you're young? Anyway, yeah, it was a battle, but that's, I guess, what makes you better in the long run.
And when you start getting better and start beating these guys, eventually you're tracked to the U.S. team. It seems to happen really fast. And how do you actually make the U.S. ski team as like a 17-year-old?
I was 16, and I guess how I made it is that on the East Coast, the kids don't grow up racing downhill. And being on the West, I always raced downhill young. And so the first downhill I went to was in Sugarloaf, Maine, and all the guys were 20 years old, and I was 16, and I got third place, basically. And then I got the attention. So I got invited to a development camp to make the U.S. ski team. And my coach from GMVS was like, I don't want you to make the downhill team. I was like, well, financially, I kind of got to. And if I can make it, I'm going to make it. He wanted me to race technical events, which I was really good at, but hadn't really prospered yet. So again, I went to the walk-on camp in Mount Bachelor and made the ski team. And then I was financially set at that point. I mean, I wasn't making money yet, but they were at least paying for my travel. And then I eventually moved over to the technical team a couple years later. My destiny was already kind of decided.
So when you get on that team and you're a rookie on the U.S. ski team, I would want to believe, especially back then, that there was a good amount of hazing done to the rookies because that's what people did back in the 90s, I would think, or late 80s, 90s, whatever it is. Did you experience hazing of being a rookie?
Oh, hell yeah. Felix McGrath and Tiger Shaw.
Tiger Shaw, who was like the head of the U.S. ski team up until like a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was on the ski team with those guys. Tiger Shaw was a character. I got stories about him. He was always funny. But yeah, no, those guys, they'd haze you. I mean, they'd take water shots while they gave you tequila shots. Like, they just messed you up. I mean, one of my favorite stories of Tiger Shaw is we're going down these roads in Europe, and they're all like steep and 180-degree turns, and there's forests everywhere. And you know how you have runout lanes, like you even see on interstate?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I'm sitting in the front seat, Tiger's driving. He hits the accelerator going in this 180-degree turn on a super steep Euro highway. And Euro highways are like, or roads are like a car and a half wide. They're not like 2 lanes. They're like a lane and a half.
Right.
And he just hits the accelerator, and I'm like, my fingers are digging into the dashboard. I'm like, holy crap, we're going to die. And then he just knows where this runout lane is, and he just immediately takes a right before this turn that you can't see until the last moment. So we go up this gravel slope as a runout lane, and everybody in the back's freaking out. Tiger's just laughing his butt off. It was really funny. I'll never forget that one.
And did they make you do shit? Like, did you have to bring people breakfast, sing songs?
No, I wouldn't tolerate that.
Did they make other people do that? It's just Nobis wasn't going to have that?
Yeah, I'm sure they did. They found their way to mess with me. They knew how to get under my skin. So I was never a servant. But yeah, I mean, all older guys find a way to get you somehow. So.
And how did they get you?
Like I said, we'd go out, have a day off the next day, and then all of a sudden it would be clear and we'd have to go train. And 17-year-old kid with a freaking really bad hangover, and they'd just laugh at me, and I'd be like, screw you, but okay, you got me.
And the whole ski scene, the whole lifestyle around it is ski hard all day, and then you're going to go to the bar and party all night. I don't know if that starts for you at 17 on the ski team, but when does the partying start?
There's always partying involved in skiing. It is part of the lifestyle, but when I was younger, it was like once a month. It was not every day or whatever. Like when you did the free ski film scene that I was a part of, that happened every day. But
right.
No, in ski racing, we were pretty serious, actually. And we'd all let off steam every once in a while, especially when we knew we had like a day off, let's say. And then, of course, there would end up not being a day off. But I didn't party that hard when I was in the ski team. It was like once a month type of thing. It was never a routine type of thing. Because we were pretty fit. We were pretty healthy. Like, we were serious about what we were doing.
I mean, there's pressure on all of you guys to do well, I would think. And for you, it's like you're the dude who has trained way more than you've actually raced because you're so young. Was there less pressure on you in the beginning? And it's more like, hey, let's get a bunch of races under this kid's belt. And eventually he's going to be the future and he's going to be ready to dominate. Is that kind of how they treated you and prepared you with the U.S. team?
They did. They over raced us when we were young. Like, I'd do 55, 60 races a year. And the year I won the Junior Worlds, this is where I had success. I had my coach, Werner Margreiter. I only raced 27 races. It was a whole media hype. Like, oh my gosh, look at this racer management. He did half the normal races and look at his success. Like, that was a big, big deal back in my day. Because my guy was not only an athlete himself in the past, top 20 in the world in downhill, he was a kinesiologist. He was a smart dude. So he racer managed me. I did half the races of everybody else, and then I had twice the success. And I think that still applies if they're smart nowadays. Like, you don't do 60 races a year. It's just overwork.
Yeah, it just sounds like it's going to burn you out.
Well, I mean, even the downhill team, when I was younger, they started the racer management after my story came out. They'd literally not even, the downhill team would take like at least one downhill a year off. There's 11 downhills a year, and they'd take at least one off because they had Super Gs also and other races to do. And it's hard to be an American being over in Europe because Europe, that's their home turf. Like, they can go home at night. For us, we're living in a hotel out of a bag, and it wears you out a little quicker. So there's a lot of disadvantages to being American, being on a World Cup ski tour. But I think nowadays they've slowly figured it out.
It was Europe dominated back in your day, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's still Europe dominated, but, Americans will start to figure out how to make Europe a home for themselves, and they've gotten more comfortable and figured it out like anything else. But back in the day, it was hardcore. Like, it was not easy to be an American 30 years ago traveling in Europe. You just got tired. It beat you up.
Everybody hated you and no one wanted to be nice to you because you were American?
That wasn't so much they hated us. We did sometimes go out and say we were Canadian, and then they'd all go, "No, you're not. You're American." I mean, we played all those jokes because, yeah, I mean, Americans generally weren't. It wasn't our fault. We treated people well, and we always made friends. But yeah, that was a battle too, like, to get respect from Europeans, for sure. Like, that's a reality.
And in thinking of getting respect, what was the first race where you skied really well and felt like you actually belonged and earned some of that respect?
I guess it was 17 years old. I won the Junior Worlds.
That puts you on the global map. Like, once you do that, everybody knows who you are and there's almost a target on you.
Yeah, that was Madonna di Campiglia, Italy. Yeah, I wouldn't say a target. Like, you just slowly get respect. Like anything else in the world, you got to earn it. Sometimes it takes time. I mean, sometimes people get it quickly and right off the bat, but I don't know. I guess I never felt like I had respect. I always made friends with the Euros, actually. It would be one or two, and then the rest were just whatever.
Did always feeling like you never got respect, was that really what drove you and motivated you? Was just always having that thought that no one respects you?
Well, I think in hindsight, I don't know entirely that's it, but yeah, I mean, when people don't respect you, you try a little harder, That's a motivating factor for sure. Fuels you. You kind of go, you know what, I don't care what you think, and just kind of do it. I guess most of my life, I just try not to really care what other people think. I mean, I do, but then eventually you can't care. You just got to go, screw you, I'm in. I'll show you.
And maybe the first area where you can't really care about what people think, or you almost just have to laugh at yourself, is I believe there was one race where you somehow ended up hooking a course banner and you brought that through the finish line with you. It was like a big piece of toilet paper if someone was leaving the bathroom and it was stuck out of their pants. But it was you pulling a banner into the finish area, and you were like winning this race when it happened. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was Saalbach, Austria, World Championships. I'll tell you the whole story quickly. Yeah, I was like 10th the first run. I was 20 years old. All the girls on my team, Eva Tordokens, Heidi Volker, they were like, "Oh, Jeremy, you can win, you can win." And I'm like, no, maybe I'll get top 5, whatever, It was in 10th place. I was like, there's no way. But turns out I was winning the run by over a second. There's 50,000 people there, and I could hear them. It's the only time in my life I could hear the crowd. Usually I tune them out, but as soon as I heard them, I just started going faster and faster. And they had a really weird course set. 7 out of the top 15 guys didn't finish, and I was the first guy to get the course report because it was straight, then 3 crankers in the finish, and third to last gate. I ate crap. Broke my ankle, but I had a banner stuck to my skis. Like you said, toilet paper. And it was like 50 feet, 100 feet long. And I skied into the finish. Didn't even know it was wrapped around my ankle. And then there's like 20,000 to finish. The other 20 are on the hill. So they all started cheering. And I pumped my hand. I'm thinking, oh, they're just happy to say hi to me, whatever. But they were laughing at me because I had toilet paper basically going on behind my skis.
And you came into the finish with a broken ankle? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I picked myself up, dusted myself off, and yeah, skied into the finish arena. And again, I got this snake of a banner behind me, just following me. And of course, I turned my head around and went, oh, no wonder they're laughing at me.
It's time for sponsor break number 2, and while ski season is winding down, I can't thank Elan Skis enough for the amazing product this year. My ripsticks have made me a better skier, and I haven't had as much fun on skis since I made the switch to Elan. There's something to be said about the quality of the build, and next time you head to your local ski shop, examine the skis on the wall and then look at the Elans. You can see the difference in the build and the quality of the build, and when you get them on snow, well, they ski that much better than the other products on the wall. I highly encourage everyone to demo a pair of Elan, as I know once you try them, you will understand the cult-like following that the brand has been building the past few years. To find out more about the skis, head on over to elanskis.com. My final sponsor is Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Peter Glenn is your one-stop shop for all things winter. But now that spring is here and summer is right around the corner, Peter Glenn has all you need for camping, hiking, wakeboarding, inline skating, and more. They have all the brands, all the products, and all the deals. But if you find a better deal from a reputable retailer, Peter Glenn will price match it. So do me a favor. Before you buy something from someone else, check out Peter Glenn's pricing too. Usually it's better, and if they aren't, like I said, they will price match. And know that Peter Glenn isn't the typical industry giant looking to expand and take over. They are here to serve you like they have for over 70 years. To find out more about the brands and the products, head on over to peterglenn.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. So you break your ankle there, and then it looked like in 1992, and I don't know if this is 91 when you break your ankle, but 92, it looks like you did one race and then you were out, and I'm guessing there was an injury that season as well. What happened then?
You know, I was already qualified for the Olympics that year and was getting top tens, and I went to a first ever cash race in Garmisch-Partenkirchen in Germany, and I blew my knee out. Didn't even crash. I just did a turn and knee popped. I went, oh, blew my knee. New Year's Day, and then I flew home and got surgery, and yeah, I didn't go to the Olympics. Even though I made it, I didn't go. I just sat on the couch in a robe watching it.
And is that just like the biggest punch to your gut ever, is like you work your whole life? Because that's the pinnacle, right? Like you want to make the U.S. ski team, which I should first ask, is it crazy as shit that like your dream in life is to make or maybe not dream in life, but at one point you have a dream of making the U.S. team and going to the Olympics. And is it crazy that at 16 years old, you achieve that dream? It's like you've already hit that pinnacle of making the U.S. team at 16. And no one hits their goals in life that early. Is that just a weird thing?
Yeah, it is. And well, the irony is I hated the U.S. ski team, never liked it. I quit young because of it. All I wanted to do was race the Olympics. The path to the Olympics, to me, was always a problem. Doing World Cup, U.S. ski team crap, I never liked it. But I just wanted to go to the Olympics. And I did. And so, yeah, it was a gut punch in 92. I was more prepared in 92. I ended up going in 94. Okay, I got ninth. I got top 10. I had a shot at a medal after the first run. I was fifth after the first run. The guy who won, I beat the first run. I was just nervous and wasn't 100% healthy yet because I had so many injuries in 2 years. But again, like, when I was 20 years old, I made 92, and I was so prepared that year. Like, I was ready to win. So, yeah, I blew my knee out, and that crushed me. And I was never the same mentally after that, I'll admit.
When you say never the same mentally, is it you're thinking about your knee when you're hauling ass, or is it just like there's just some kind of block in your head?
It was more preparation. My coaches didn't understand me, and I always said I just don't have that feel again yet. I'm still trying to get it. And they'd always tell me I was fine. Oh, yeah, you're over your injury now. You're great. And I was like, no, I'm not. And it took all my will to even get top 10 in the Olympics that year. Like, it was all me. My coaches did not know how to help an athlete prosper back in the day. So I blame my coaches, actually. They got in my way.
And with that injury, and that kind of changes you in that one. But when we think about your whole injury list throughout your career, we might as well get injuries out of the way now. Can you rattle off a list of all the things you've done?
I had like shoulder surgery, 6 knee surgeries,
Jeez.
and some have had more, but I was the top guy in GS at the time. So even skiing injured, I'd still win all the time trials. But when I got injured, I was winning by 2 seconds a run. And when I came back from injury, I was only winning by 2/10 a run. And I was like, I told you guys, I'm not back to my old form yet. Again, I just knew it. And for a while, I was correct. Like, I couldn't make the top 30 for a while.
When you look at like 93, looking at all your results, you're healthier, but I mean, I'm guessing you're not 100%. But it seemed like you struggled that season. And was that what was going on in your head? Was like you're coming out of injury and you're not fully 100%. And while everybody expects you to be Jeremy Nobis that they know, you're not there, but no one can see inside your body and understand what's going on. So it's got to be a totally frustrating thing, not being where you want to be, but everybody expecting you to be there.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Yeah, they're not inside my head, and they thought they were. And I'm like, no, I would be honest. I'd be like, you guys don't get it. I got a taste of being one of the best. Like, I used to train with Tomba and the Austrians and Yugoslavians, and I'd always crush them all in training. And then I get to a race, and there was a mental thing maybe, and they still knew how to win. Like, Tomba knew how to win. Like, I'll give you a funny story. I remember training in Breckenridge with the Yugoslavians, now it's Slovenia, Austrians, and I'd beat them all by a second in time trials. And then they would quit training with me. Tomba would come out, and he would train with me, and I'd beat him by a second a run, and he'd just keep training with me. He didn't care. He's like, oh, maybe I'll learn something from this young little 20-year-old kid. And then he'd go win a World Cup. He wasn't afraid of me. And that's why Tomba was such a champion. He wasn't afraid of anybody. He's like, okay, great. You might be fast in training, but I know how to race. And that's the biggest challenge in anything is how do you work on competition day? And that's the one weakness I had. And being injured so many times in a row, I could never develop that competition behavior. Like, all you need to do is win once, and then you know how to do it. But I just got close all the time. I never quite won. Yeah, I won when I was a teenager, but World Cup's a whole nother level. It's like a college player going to the NFL. And that was me. I was a college player when I was a kid, and then I went to the NFL as a World Cup guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And to me, like I've had a bunch of conversations with racers before, and the whole thing about racing is even if you're one of the best in the US, and then you go on this World Cup tour, if you get sixth at every race through your entire career, that's looked at as a huge success, even though you've never gotten on a podium. I mean, it's one of those things where you can spend a whole career not winning and you can have a successful career. But to me, who's not an athlete at all when it comes to racing or doing anything at a high level, but to me, that would seem like it would be frustrating because I would want to at least win here and there and just have that taste of victory. But in the race world, victory is reserved for a few people like the Tombas of the world who can put it all together on race day.
You're absolutely right. I can talk these stories all about racing without being cocky or overconfident, but I mean, that's it. I was in it to win. I wasn't in it for fifth place. And it's funny, the guy who tuned my skis, he was a Swiss guy and he was very smart. And he wasn't even in the starting gate. Like coaches normally are there with you, but my technician was. And he looked at me and I was third place after the first run at Alta Badia. I was 3/10 out. Tombo was the leading. And my technician said to me, Jeremy, just have a safe run, get top 5. We'll try to win the next one. And I was like, yeah, that sounds smart. And then I got in the starting gate and I saw red. I was like, fuck that, I'm winning.
Right.
And I was winning. I was winning at Midway. I was going to win that freaking race. And then the course had a weird slip. And anyway, my inside edge caught and I crashed and blew my shoulder out. Like, that's where I blew my shoulder out. Anyway, I was always in it to win. I was never in it for 5th or 7th place. I mean, when I was 20 years old, I was winning World Cup runs. Bodie Miller didn't win his first World Cup till he was 27. And then he went on to be the most winning guy ever. But it took him 7 years longer. I was already prepped at 20, dude.
Yeah.
I was way more talented than any of those fucking guys. Excuse my language.
No, it's okay.
But again, I also helped pioneer what made them all successful later down the road.
For sure.
All the things I wanted to happen are happening now. And I'm proud of the team for changing things. And that's what everything else in the world is. I don't know. I mean, the Mayors were a special breed. They survived all the crap. We all come from different backgrounds. And again, I had the chance and I didn't pull it off. And it's my own fault. No blame. I can see how things went sideways.
I mean, I don't even look at it as totally sideways because you had an amazing career. I mean, you went to the Olympics in 1994 is that Olympic year for you. And first, what does it take for you to make the Olympic team? Because looking at the results the year before, it's not like you're killing it by any means. Like there was something in your head or something going on where you're not doing so well, but you make the team. How did you make it?
I was still the best GS skier at the time. I just kind of stumbled into the Olympics, admittedly. I was actually at Crans, Montana at a World Cup, and I was like top 10 after the first run, and I pulled a typical Nobis and hooked my arm on the third to last gate and almost blew out of the course. Ended up 17th, but that was enough to qualify me for the Olympics. And so I was like, just get me to the Olympics, and I got the American dream, and I can still medal. I believed it wholeheartedly. And again, I gave myself a fair chance. I actually was in the hunt, which nobody believed. Like I came down the first run fifth. My technician, he was joking in the starting gate with everybody, and then all of a sudden I get fifth, and then he freaked out. Then he couldn't find me for like an hour. He's like, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" I was like, "Well, my friend, it's always in me, man." And it's the Olympics.
Well, the Olympics are where an athlete can make money, and it sounded like you wanted to get paid for the Olympics, but you found out that you couldn't do what you wanted to do with sponsors because of the U.S. ski team. And they made you sign something that took away a lot of your rights. Like what? They make you sign something that you couldn't get paid?
No, I mean, back in the day, they had these certain licenses. We still got paid. It's just the ski team kind of limited it a little bit. But no, you could still get paid. But I mean, back in those days, there was no cash races. Now, every World Cup, you get paid cash on top of what your sponsors pay you. The whole thing has changed. Like I said, I was in the first cash prize race ever in Garmisch where I blew my knee out. And that was just an experiment. Now it's cash is flying everywhere like any other sport. We were kind of limited, but we still got paid. But what happened was your sponsors had to pay a certain fee to be a ski team sponsor. Then they had to write a contract with you, and then they would pay the U.S. ski team. Then the U.S. ski team would pay you your contract. So it was stupid and weird. It's like, we should just sign contracts and have the sponsor pay me directly.
Yeah, like was the U.S. ski team selling real estate on your body pretty much and then claiming that they're giving all the money back to the athletes? Like if you have a big visa on your beanie or whatever, on your helmet, the U.S. ski team's taking in that payment and then redistributing money to the athletes?
Yeah, well, like I said, we'd get paid the full price, whatever contract we signed. But again, it'd go through the U.S. ski team. They could collect interest on it for a month or two, and then they'd pay you. However that game goes. I'm not a dummy in that one, but they called it a Class B license so you could still race in the Olympics. Because back in the day, pro athletes could not race in the Olympics. So if I'm getting paid directly, I'm considered professional. But if it goes to the ski team, I'm still kind of like a college athlete. They had weird loopholes. It was stupid.
Yeah, it sounds totally dumb.
No, it was the dumbest thing you've ever heard of. And again, now that's all changed. It doesn't go like that anymore. But yeah, back in my day, that was my joke. And I'm not a financial wizard, but they'd hold on to my money for like a month or two and then pay me. They'd always paid you quarterly. So, I mean, they had like 3 or 4 months to collect interest on the money that I was paid. And then I'd get paid exactly what I signed my contract for. But I mean, the U.S. ski team was a non-profit organization. It still is. And it's the only one in the world. All governments pay for all these other athletes. But it's the biggest money laundering scheme in the world. The U.S. ski team is not a non-profit. Everybody's making money and they're stealing from athletes, and it's just dumb.
I agree with you. I think there is some level of corruption to everything that is involved with anything in the Olympics. I feel like there's always some kind of things that just don't seem right, but whatever, they get away with it. And then in terms of training, are you able to control your own training, or do you have to go through the U.S. ski team's protocol of how you are trained?
I followed the rules early on, but honestly, I ran my own program since I was pretty young. Like even when I was made the U.S. ski team, they'd go to my coach Vernon and go, "Hey, we own him, but you can train him." And I would train away from the U.S. ski team. And then when I made the U.S. ski team, there was like 20 of us, and I'll admit, not to be overconfident or cocky, but I had power, and my coach Tor was great, and I would grab the best slalom skier, best downhill skier, and that happened to be Matt Grosjean, AJ Kitt, and Tommy Moe. And we went to New Zealand, the 4 of us alone. And normally we would, have all 10, 20 of us together, but I always found a way to private train. I wanted the best of the best, and that's how we did it. Honestly, that's a true story. That happened.
And did they have problems with that at all?
Oh, I'm sure somebody did, but Tor was super smart and he had power, and I was just coming on really strong, and so they had confidence in me at the time. So I had a little power, and I pulled everything I could. Like, that's just who I was.
And then when you think of that Olympic team, outside of Tommy Moe, you have like AJ Kitt, Slopey, Grosjean, Puckett, Fleischer, Rasmussen. It was crowded with like a bunch of middle of the pack World Cup guys. Was there a lot of infighting, or were you sharing information, or what was that pack like?
No, I didn't share my information with anybody. And yeah, there's a lot of middle of the pack dudes. And, Slopey, I had zero respect for him when I was on the team with him. But I raced Pro Tour with him, and then he came back to the US ski team and actually finally proved himself. I mean, Slopey was a specimen. Like, that dude was just like, whoa. Yeah, that kid was physically a specimen, and he should have won earlier, but he finally found a way to win, and proud of him for it. And so was Rasmussen. That guy was, dude, these guys were just, I was a chubby dude. These guys were like ripped athletes. But I'd still find a way to win because skiing's a technical sport. Like, just because you're, physically fit and specimen doesn't mean you're going to be the best. I got off track there, but again, I don't know if it was chip on the shoulder. I didn't respect a lot of people, I'll admit. I always thought I was smarter and can work harder, and that's kind of what I did.
And there was no team aspect to you? Like you weren't going to share any beta that you have from the course that was kind of just your stuff and it's like an individual sport. Why are you going to share that information?
No, I'd share information in course reports, but my day-to-day life, no, I just thought everybody were a bunch of babies. Like I said, I grew up with more talented athletes than myself, and they all quit. So I just felt like everybody were quitters. And I was like, again, race day, I'm always there for my teammates. I always gave them respect that way. But like my day-to-day life, no, I did things my own way. I'll admit it. Like, I'm not giving anything up to you.
Okay. And then when we look back on it, on the Olympic experience, what was the highlight for you? I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of different moments that you remember it with fondness, but
Just walking into the opening ceremonies, I was just overwhelmed. I was like, I'm finally here.
you hear about people just like welling up with tears and emotion, even people that you would never expect to be emotional at something get emotional at the Olympic Games. Does that happen to you as well?
I cried watching a dumb movie. I didn't cry at the Olympics. I was just satiated with happiness. I was too happy to cry even. I was just like, wow, here I am. I'd probably cry more about it, my memory, than I did when I was actually there.
And we talked about the race. You ended up with 9th place. Your sister was in 10th, so you ended up beating her, which is something that you can always throw in her face nowadays.
Let's not say I beat her. It was just a funny joke. Come on.
Yeah, well, yeah. I would never say you beat your sister. That would be totally inappropriate. But you finished at a higher ranking than her in your respective race compared to her respective race, which is cool to be able to say to her. It would be cooler for her if she could say that to you, but she can't. But you finished 9th in Lillehammer, and you're better than like a Tomba, a Mont. There was a bunch of people that you're better than. Was that not motivation to keep you racing?
Well, it kind of was. I raced for another year, but from all the injuries I'd had and being pushed to come back so quickly, I spent the next season with a groin injury, and they couldn't figure out. Like, I went to the best Swedish hockey doctor. I got injected with dye, MRIs, spent thousands of dollars to try to figure out my problem. I mean, I had another doctor give me prednisone, which is a steroid anti-inflammatory. And they just said, oh, you just need to take a month off. And yeah, I'd take a month off and I'd feel better. And then I'd come back skiing, and within 2 days, I couldn't ski anymore. My groin was so bad. So I didn't even go to an orthopod. I went to a doctor in Salt Lake. His name is John McIntyre, and he used to be a Canadian doctor. He was more of a sports medicine guy. He wasn't like an orthopod, but he worked with the guy that used to do my knees, Dr. Beck. And I went and saw him. I said, dude, nobody can figure out what's wrong with me. Can you help me out? And he had me walk up and down the hall 3 times. And he goes, oh, I know your problem. It's like you've been injured so much, you've been limping so much, it's pulled your hips out of whack. And the guy gave me like these dumbest exercises I've ever done in my life. And in a week, I was 50% better.
Huh.
And it took me a year to fully recover. And, sometimes it comes back even now because it's just one of those, and I'm not young anymore. It's one of those repetitive things. It does rear its head every once in a while, but I know how to fix it. But yeah, no, he's like, your hips are online. And I was like, what? After all these freaking tests and pros, and they couldn't figure it out. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, he solved it. And I'll put that on record. John McIntyre, he's awesome.
So he saves the ski career, or at least gets your body back into place, which is pretty amazing. And when you think about the U.S. team and your racing, it's like the last race that you do, I think you placed second and you could have been first. I think you might have hooked a gate or something like 2 gates out and ended up in second place, but you still have the talent to stay on the U.S. team. How does the U.S. ski team time end for you? Do you just flat out quit and like, fuck you guys, I'm done?
Yeah, I pretty much straight up quit because I was sick of injury or fighting it. And I actually raced the Pro Tours, Felix McGrath, the guy who used to freaking haze me when I was on the ski team. And after a year of Pro Tour, we both were like, hey, let's go back to the U.S. ski team. We'll crush those guys. And so we went to Mount Hood and trained with the U.S. ski team when I was like 25, and we were crushing them. And then after training with them for 10 days, I hated the culture. I hated the coaches. I was like, you guys all suck. And I was qualified to come back, but I didn't. I just decided, no, you know what? I already quit. Time to move on. And I just quit. Then I became a pro mountain bike racer, cross country, not downhill. And I was top 15 in the nation time. And then sponsors and Ski World came back and said, hey, Nobis, you'll fit into this extreme world. And that's how I got into extreme skiing. I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Well, before we get into that, the last question I'll have for this first part is when we think about racing, and back then it seems like all athletes, it didn't matter what sport it was, a lot of people cheated. Performance enhancing drugs were out there. And did you ever see or know of people who were cheating?
Yeah, I saw a bunch of it. You know what? Maybe you opened a little bit of a can of worms there, but God bless his soul, Stu Campbell. He was a Ski Magazine interviewer, and he interviewed me a few years after I retired from the ski team, and I'm 165 pounds at the time. And he goes, so Jeremy, they say you took steroids. And I'm like, dude, look at me. Do I look like I take steroids? And when I raced the Olympics, I was 165 pounds soaking wet. Like, do I look like a steroid user? Give me a break, dude.
Right.
I know a lot of guys that took hormones. I know a lot of guys that took other pills. I mean, I worked my butt off, and so did Tommy. God bless his soul too. He's my buddy. Just for an example, I mean, there's other guys that did the same thing, but we trained our butt off to make 10 pounds in the off season. Amat and Lasse Cuse, me and Mo crushed them at the Junior Worlds. And then a year later, they were top 15 in the world. And they were 20 pounds heavier than us. And Amat's 2 inches shorter than me. I mean, those guys were doing crap that who knows. But I have not really said it in public or in interviews very often. I will say, and there was other guys that took them that never were successful because skiing is a technical sport. And one of the favorite quotes I've ever heard in my life is from Bodie Miller. And I got a mad respect for him for this one. He's like, all right, guys, just give me a card of what your drug you're taking, and I'll still kick your ass. And that's the way I felt. I literally felt that way. I was like, because skiing is a technical sport, like golf is a technical sport. I mean, having strength and taking performance-enhancing drugs, well, that's what kept the Euros doing 50 races a year. Their endurance would keep up. But for us, we weren't taking anything, and we'd wear out quicker, so we needed a break every now and then. Like, there's so many things I could get into deeply, but again, when you're on your game, you're on your game. I don't care how many drugs you're on. I'll still kick your ass because I can ski better than you. And that was the deal. I was more talented. I'm not won more races than I'll ever won. Again, one chance, whatever. I was a better skier than that guy. But he proved that he was better by all of his results, so whatever. And Tommy Moe was a better skier than just about everybody. But Tommy Moe had a confidence thing, too. He just didn't quite put it together all the time. I don't know.
All right. Well, we are going to wind down the podcast this week with something that I call inappropriate questions. And what I do is I get someone that you know to come up with 3 questions, and they can be anything. And I play them to you, and you answer them. And this week, I was able to get arguably the greatest American skier of all time to ask you these questions. And when I say that very seriously because I got Darren Ralphs to ask you 3 inappropriate questions.
Oh, my boy. You got my favorite guy in the world.
I figured I might as well get your favorite guy in the world to ask you 3 inappropriate questions.
How would you know that he was my favorite dude?
I didn't, but I just knew that with all the history that had gone on between ski team and Green Mountain Valley School and all that you guys were friends. And I figured that he would be a great guy to ask. And then when I said his name and you said he was like your favorite guy in the world, I just played that. I knew that the whole time, which I didn't, but I'm glad that I got Darren.
So you've actually talked to Darren about this?
Yo, yeah. Darren has 3 questions, and I'm going to play question number 1 from Darren for you right now. Here it is.
Okay.
Hey, Nobis. Darren Ralphs here. Good to have you on the Powell movement. I got a few inappropriate questions to ask you. So I'm going to kick it off with, I remember between 91 and 94, you were scoring really well in the World Cup in GS, and you were top 10 at the 94 Olympics. As a good-looking ginger American skier scoring World Cup points, did you get as many Euro girls chasing you as your teammate Reggie Christ?
Oh, okay. Now I'm going to get myself in trouble here. No, Reggie Chris, to this day, he's a Ken doll. Dude, I didn't get laid ever. I didn't get any women. I never got lucky. Honestly, I was a dork. Never got lucky in the World Cup. Ever.
All right, well, there's an honest answer. We will jump into question number 2 from Ralph's.
As a top GS skier on the U.S. ski team in 1993, you were beat by a rookie his first year on the team at the NASCAR Coca-Cola National Pace Setting Trials in Beaver Creek. Were you not taking it seriously, man, that day, or actually give your best effort coming up short?
So I'm guessing Darren beat you that day?
I was going to say it must have been him beating me.
Yeah.
Dude, like I said, if it was Darren, he was a talent. I knew it when he was in 8th grade. So, yeah. I don't know if I took it serious or not, but no, you know what? NASCAR probably didn't take it as serious, but hey, any guy can get beat on any given day.
True.
That's it.
And when you're a World Cup racer, I would think NASCAR means a whole lot less than anything else.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'll admit, like, as I told you earlier, I was always pretty competitive, and yeah, we have good and bad days, but like, I could be as competitive as ever and still get beat by somebody. Like, even the best man can get beat on any given day. They call it any given Sunday in football, whatever. Like, any given day on a ski slope, you get beat, you know? But that's how you learn, and that's how you get better. And you just try not to get beat again.
All right, we will jump into Ralph's final inappropriate question.
You once said something like skiing big lines in AK was more challenging and scary than ski racing. Did you ever race a World Cup downhill?
Oh, Darren, you smart ass. I raced a couple downhills. I actually raced Europa Cups that were gnarlier than World Cups. They didn't have fences. They had hay bales. The Europa Cup was way scarier, and I raced a bunch of those when I first started. But no, you're right. You got me there, buddy. But Darren grew up being a free skier himself. I kind of motivated him to get into this extreme stuff, and I think he knows it. It's a different intensity level, but what I've done in extreme skiing far transcends any downhill race. I'm sorry. That's the truth. But I've also done more in free skiing than he ever has. He was as talented or more than me, but I've done some stuff that I really, if I fell, I died.
Yeah, your body of work speaks for itself. I mean, there is no questioning any of that.
Yeah. Well, we changed it and got safer over the years. But when I first started at 27, I was in Greenland. I was going to fall in a crevasse if I fell. Like, I was dead.
Yeah.
But I didn't expose myself that later on in my career. I skied the same gnarly stuff, but wasn't as exposed. Like, if I fell, I wasn't going to die. But anyway, enough said. I just wanted to add that. It's like, yeah, no, what I've done in my life is actually far more intense than what these kids are doing nowadays. Like, because we don't do that anymore. We're safer now. I'll admit, as I told you earlier in the interview, Werner Mergard was my coach, and he's become the Austrian head coach at the time. And I inspected the Hahnenkamm, which Darren had success on. And I went through every section and went, oh, I can handle this. I can handle this. And yeah, I'm good. I can do downhill. And then I got to the finish line and went, nah, I'll just stick to the slalom tomorrow.
It's crazy how insane those courses are. Like, TV and nothing does it justice until you're there and seeing somebody go by you at 85 miles an hour and just like, holy shit. I mean, at least for me, it's like, I can't even stand on this course, let alone fucking pin it.
I've been clocked at 82 before, and it's fast as crap. And yeah, you're right. You don't know until you feel it. And, I mean, technically, I'll admit I could have handled it, but I'd moved on. I just was like, yeah, you know what? I don't need to take that risk anymore. But, you know, being a downhill racer, and that's what Darren has, is a mentality for it. And I lost my mentality for it. And, you know, had I been younger, I've been like, yeah, let's go. And then you develop a taste and a fever for it, and then you're good. But I'd already moved on at that point. I was more of a technical guy at the time. And so, yeah, I lost my thirst for it. And so I was like, yeah, time to move on.
All right, well, that's going to do it for Inappropriate Questions and for round 1 of the podcast. We are going to connect in a couple days and do the second part of the podcast, and it's awesome because we got through your race career, but your career is definitely 2 parts with a hard stop at race, and then you go to a pioneering level in another part of the sport that we're going to talk about next week. So I want to thank you for your time. It's like having a living legend on the podcast with Jeremy Nobis, and we will do it again in a few days, so thank you very much, Jeremy.
Bet, I hope that was good for you. Thanks.
So that was time with Jeremy Nobis, and really, that was the easy part of the interview. His U.S. ski team career seemed pretty cookie cutter with a little drama here and there. But the next episode is where Jeremy really makes a name for himself, both in his big mountain skiing and for getting in trouble. I can't say I'm looking forward to pissing Jeremy off in part 2, but I'm going to ask all the questions and try not to judge because that's what I do. And if it pisses Jeremy off, well, it's part of his story and he knows it's coming. And sure, we're going to talk about all the trouble, but we're also going to talk about the transition to the big mountains, who helped him get there, how he earned the name Psycho Nobi, and more. That's the show for this week. At this point, I want you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on. If I read your review on the show, email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com and I'll send you a limited edition Powell Movement beanie. And I'm running low on beanies, so only the interesting reviews will be read. And really, a review only takes a minute or 2 to post, and it means a lot to the dude who gives you a podcast each week. So please help me out with a review or face the curse of Powell. At this point, I want to thank you for listening and ask you to support the incredible brands who make this show happen. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Elon Skis, Rollerblade, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.